we ought to do, unless you have burning questions, is do some stuff from chapter 3 on converting from cash to accrual or from accrual to cash. And if you can do that, you really understand deferrals and accruals. Okay? And we did deferrals and accruals a few days ago, right? A few last weeks ago, real quickly, and we'll do a bunch of examples now in the review session. We'll do a bunch of them. What's new in this chapter is, at the end of the chapter, converting from cash to accrual basis and converting from accrual basis to cash basis, right? And then also reversing entries. And reversing entries are kind of this, I used to think they were kind of obsolete. Why would anybody do these anymore now that we have computers? And then I had some students who were working for this little tiny company here in town, and they said, well, you know, my job in my internship is to do the reversing entries every month. That's one of the parts of my job. I always do lots and lots of reversing entries. And that little company was GE. So I guess people still use reversing entries, huh? Yeah. You know, General Electric, you guys are familiar with them, right? So reversing entries, I don't think it's tested very much on the CPA exam. If it's there, there'll be 1 or 2 questions, you know, you'll get 1 or 2 points to go with your other 73 to make your 75. And your competition won't even look at it, probably. So we're going to do reversing entries. It's just common sense. They give you a rule of thumb, but it's just common sense on what to do. So we'll take a look at that too. Okay? I'd rather use common sense than memorize the author's rule of thumb, right? You know, the rule of thumb's fine, except in my case, I had a 50-50 chance of getting them right. Whichever way I remembered it, right? Versus if you use common sense, you're 100% sure you're going to do it right. So this is a cash to accrual problem. I kept making them up and putting them on the blackboard, and when I do that, I'm going to do that with you guys too. But when I do that, I sometimes screw them up, and the accounts don't work out, like negative cash or something in the end, ridiculous things. So, which can happen, by the way, but not intentionally. So here's a problem that you can work. What I'd like you to do is work this for next time. This really gives you a full-blown version, unless we get to it today, which I kind of doubt. Instead, maybe we'll do. Did anybody have some questions? So take a look on page 141.
Do you need more of the papers?
Yeah. Did you get one down? Smile. Sunshine. Anyway, this is a problem that everybody's going to work for next time.
Okay.
And we'll go through it. You really do want to work this one, you guys. It looks hard at first. It feels hard when you're doing it. And then once you realize what's going on, it's just... So we could go either direction. The problem I just gave you is doing a cash basis and an accrual basis statement, right? So what's the difference between cash? Oh, anyway, on page 141, exercise 318, 319, and 320. Let's take a look at those. Okay? Those are some you did today. Are you actually doing the homework that I suggest? Yeah. If you want to nail this class, if you want to nail the CPA exam, if you want to nail your career, do it. Don't procrastinate. Don't put it off. Don't decide, geez, we just did a quiz. I don't need to do anything. Okay? Don't do something really good at work and then take a vacation at work. Right? A lot of people do that. Right? Just keep going. Big deal, you did a good job. So like a football player celebrating the end zone. Yeah, everybody for the next play. What's wrong with them? Celebrating the end zone. Right? Celebrate with the beer. Not throwing a ball around. I like when they drop the ball before they get in the end zone. No Oregon player did that this year. He didn't play for a while. Yeah, it was good too. That was good. But anyway. So give this one a shot. And it's just going to be the same stuff we're doing today anyway. Let's start with this. Somebody tell me what accrual basis means. versus what cash basis is. What do you think? Accrual basis accounting, it's accruals and deferrals, we just call it accruals. Okay? Right?
Accrual takes into account like the accruals and deferrals, and cash basis is just like solely based on cash transactions.
Yeah. So when do you have revenue on your cash basis? When you receive the cash. It's always debit cash credit revenue. There's no such thing as account receivable. There's no such thing as unearned revenue. You don't have it. Of course you do have it, you just don't record it. Right? Okay. What about the expense side? Cash basis. Only when you pay it. So I don't have expenses until I pay them. That's right. Oh, so I can make my net income be more just by not paying my bills. Yes. Right? I can make my net income be more by getting my customers to pay me in advance. I haven't delivered anything to them yet, but it's revenue as soon as they pay me, right? So do you think cash basis is acceptable for financial statements under generally accepted accounting principles? No, because you're not recognizing your revenue when you earned it necessarily, and you're not recognizing your expense when you incurred it, so your net income's all screwed up, right? Okay? You need the deferrals and accruals. Okay, so what's accrual basis? You still record the cash, right? If I earned the cash when they paid me, I debit cash and credit revenues. What if I haven't earned it yet? I can still debit cash, but what do I credit? If they paid me in advance. Unearned revenue, absolutely. And if I have earned it, right, but they haven't paid me yet, I still credit the revenue account, don't I? But what do I debit?
Receivables.
The receivable, account receivable. Everybody in the room staying with me, right? No, you're not. You will. Start working. Okay? Here's the deal. I told you this before. There are a group of people sitting in here who have recently done principles and busted their ass. And they already know what I'm talking about. He's not the only one. It's just nice somebody actually talked for a change. Thank you. Right? There's other people sitting here thinking, oh, please tell me something I don't know. There are a couple of people who just did this last semester. Trust me, they know it too. They really know it now. They don't want to do this again. Okay? I mean 211. Okay? By the way, it's not at all uncommon for people to do 211 a second time. Not at all. It's fine. I love you guys. I hope you come back and visit me again next semester. No, I don't. How much do you move on to the next? Go on with your career. But if you do come back, it'll be great because you really bring up the class when you come back and do it again. Do you want to do that? No. No, I don't do it. Okay? So come on, get with it. So you should be staying with me when I do this, and if you can't stay with me, you got some work to do. Do it. Do it now. Okay? Anyway, what about an expense side? If I pay for it as I use it, what do I do? Debit the expense account and credit cash. Oh, what if I pay for it before I use it? Still credit cash. Debit what? Prepays. Yeah, it's prepays. Which is a deferral or accrual? Which one? That's a deferral. What's unearned revenue? That's a deferral, right? Okay. What's accounts receivable? That's an accrual. You bet. You accrue the revenue. Okay. Could we accrue expenses too? Sure. I can incur the expense, debit the expense, because I used up whatever it is, right? In an attempt to generate revenues, that's what expenses are, right? Yes. Costs I incurred in an effort to generate revenues. And we match those things up, don't we? And you know about expense recognition. Well, some of you do. Oh, by the way, if you did horrible on this quiz, and everybody has a different definition of horrible. Some of you, something's wrong with you, and you think B plus is horrible. B plus is great. The firms are going to love you if you have a B plus in this class. They don't care. B plus, A minus, A, all the big four. Okay? Really. You perform at that level and keep going. And so does everybody else, right? B getting shakier, B minus getting real shaky, C plus, oh well, right? Somebody's going to hire you, not a big plus. Okay? It's like, although I have had some C plus students get hired by the big four firms, you know how they do it? They go to every single recruiting event there is, and they get in their face, and they know who they are, and they want to hire them. You know, KPMG does a boat cruise every year. They used to drink a lot at it. I don't know if they still do. It's for the seniors, right? Anyway, juniors and seniors that are interviewing for full-time internships. It's like a miracle nobody ever fell overboard on that thing. KPMG, their folks know how to drink. And it's just this nature of the firm. I don't know what it is, but it's funny. So the other one's not as much. Not as much. But anyway, they would invite people to come on the cruise. They get everybody's resume, right? And they look at it and they invite the people they wanted. And then after a while, they quit doing that, and they just told me, no, Keith, just send us people that have earned at least a B from you in 211. That's back then. They got a B to 11. They're well. They didn't know. Right? Big four firm. That was their gauge. You get started. So we had this young woman who had a C plus, and one of the partners called me up and they said, she's not on the list. And I said, what do you mean? She can't be on the list. She doesn't have a high enough grade in intermediate. She doesn't have a high enough GPA to make your cut overall. You know? No. We want her on the cruise. Well, okay. So I, emailed her and said, you're going. She went. And they hired her. They already did everything. So here's the thing. There is, what is this thing, this paintball stupid thing?
Laser tag.
Laser tag. That's not paintball.
Yeah.
Paintball's more violent than laser tag because they throw paint at you. Okay. I don't want to do that either. Okay, anyway. All right, so, horrible stuff. Anyway, only one person was signed up the other day. You guys see that? How many offices are there in the Accounting Association? We have 3 chairs sitting in here, 3 new chairs. You're one? Who else did? You did? Yeah. Congratulations, that's fantastic. Are you a chair?
No.
Are you an officer?
No, I'm a chair.
Oh, you're a chair. Okay, so we got 4 chairs sitting in here. We have any officers? Couple of officers? Your officers and a chair?
Yeah.
No, get somebody else. Get somebody else. Yeah. Somebody else want to be a chair? Talk to her. I'm not kidding. It looks great in your resume. The firms will love it. It doesn't just look good in your resume. You have to work your ass off. That's why they love it. Not because it's not your resume. You're doing stuff. Okay? You guys are officers? There's one opening.
No, sorry, I misunderstood you. I thought you said office.
Oh, you're not a chair. Okay, so there's 1, 2, who else was? You 3. Okay, all right. And all the chairs are full now. Okay, be on a committee. As soon as the chair quits, because they quit all the time, because it just sucks. Okay, yeah, that's good. Okay, anyway, or they change their picture or stuff. Yeah, anyway, no, I hope not. Well, they don't get rid of it anymore. You go to everything, you guys. So how many of you now have signed up for this laser tag thing? This is the largest CPA firm in town, the largest single office. They will get to know you at this. I can't imagine why you wouldn't all be going. What if somebody invites you to a party and you don't go? My wife and I never go to the parties. You know why we don't go to the parties? People we barely know invite us to parties all the time. Well, they don't much anymore. Oh, that's what we did. We don't like parties. It's okay having dinner with another couple once in a while. We have a few friends we do that with. I do not want to go into a room with 100 other people and bullshit with them. I want to sit and drink my bourbon by myself in my living room with my wife. I'm an introvert. That's what I like. We never accept invitations to parties. We never get invited to a Super Bowl party except at our grandkids' house. And then we have to go. So we love them, so it's okay. So never invite me to a party, okay? Oh, by the way, I have a rule. It's okay to invite me to a wedding if you're marrying another one of my students. So if you two decide to marry each other, I'd be happy to come to your wedding. If you marry somebody who's not an accounting major, don't invite me, okay? I really don't like weddings at all. But I'll go with, 2 people I know are getting married to each other. Otherwise, hell with that. I make my wife go. She won't go either. Okay. Why would you turn down an invitation to a party with somebody who might hire you and give you $50,000 a year from now? What the hell is wrong with you people? Oh, and you might not want to go to work for them, but do they know everybody in town who hires accountants and finance people? Yes. Are they extremely powerful people? Poor Vicky Buster, who's a partner at Mount Joy Chilton Medley, emailed me and said, Keith, I know I asked you to spread the word, but only one person signed up. If I was still chair, I would have gone your case big time. As in, you wouldn't have a recommendation for me unless you show up for that thing, and I'd be there, and I'd take a list of who showed up, and you don't get a recommendation if you don't. No pressure, though. Do it for yourself. Nobody's going to do that now. I'm not chair. I'm not going. Just go to all of them. I'm not going. It's not my job anymore. Okay? I'm retired from that. Are you guys retired yet? I'm kind of semi-retired. I just keep coming to other shit. Are you retired? How about you? Retired? Do you need a job someday? Should we be going to this? Are you?
How is this?
Whose classes?
Theology.
Go to your theology teacher and tell them it's extremely important to them. Can you take it earlier? Like,
Do you know what time?
do they have another class?
4 to 6.
I'm not kidding. You go to everything. And if you don't go, you send an email. Vicky Buster is a great person to send. You send an email to Vicky Buster and say, I would really like to go, but I have a test in one of my classes that night, and I talked to my professor, and they will not let me out. And you know what? She'll tell who you are. And she'll be looking for you next time. If you just blow it off, oh, they're not going to keep a list. Oh, no, they'll keep a list of everybody who came. Oh, by the way, if you go, don't get drunk and fall down. They keep a list of that crap, too. We had a kid. He took us to a baseball game. Right? We're at a baseball game, and this guy takes off his shirt and runs around in the stadium yelling and screaming. For fun. One of our students. And they're all like, who the hell is that? What is wrong with him? And then he came and suffered. Yeah, I was there. I kind of encourage people not to do that anymore. Yeah. You know, it is a business setting, right? This is going to be a whole lot of fun. How many are going? How many signed up? Okay, some. How many people told her signed up?
There was like 41 and a half. You know how many spots were open at the beginning?
How many?
Well, last night when I signed up, there were 41 spots open.
That's from all schools.
Yeah.
41 spots. So nobody wants a job as an accountant. If you guys show up, you get a job. If you don't show up, you won't. Just true. Oh, yeah, yeah. So keep working. That's an easy side. Doing this stuff is just horrible. Yeah. Okay. And if you're too decrepit like me and you can't run around and shoot at people or don't you prefer not to, you can stand around and talk to the partners who also don't want to do that. It's a horrible outcome. That'd be a horrible outcome. You know, I have a sore ankle, and don't lie. I really have one. But I'm sore all over. I'm old, so it's all right. Thank you. Okay, let's do number 18. Cash to accrual basis. So what they want to do, they tell you how much they collected from patients and how much they paid out as expenses. And you know what? Let's do a cash basis statement on that. Right now, let's do a cash basis statement. So, oh, by the way, if it's an accrual basis income statement, you do not have to write accrual basis on it, because of course it is one, right? Because that's GAAP. If it's cash basis, you have to say so. And then you don't call it an income statement, right? Call it a statement of cash receipts and cash disbursements, something like that. Okay, but for now, we'll just call it a cash basis. I'm going to break the rule, even though I just told you what it is. It's not a rule, it's just so people aren't confused. Let's do a cash basis income statement, and then let's do an accrual basis income statement. Okay? And they want to convert here from cash to accrual, right? Know what we're doing? Okay, so type idea. So what would cash basis be for this company? Cash received. That's your cash basis revenue. And?
Cash disbursement.
Cash dispersed, I'm not kidding. I hope you get these right when I ask you to do them. It's kind of embarrassing asking you. So what is the cash basis income? Notice I didn't say net income, but I'm trying to stay away from that terminology that you see on an accrual basis. So what's the excess of cash receipts over cash disbursements? What's cash receipts there? How much is it?
480,000.
480 even?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Sorry, what problem?
That doesn't sound right to me.
Wait.
I just looked at it and I thought it
I
was
was
less
on
than that.
18.
You're embarrassing.
Oh, my bad. I was
18.
looking at the
You know, he did pretty good on the quiz. He's smarter than he apparently can read.
142,600.
How much?
142,600.
Thank you. Crying out loud. Okay, and then what's the cash disbursement?
55,470.
Okay, so of course their income from a cash basis standpoint is what? Who's got it? Everybody brought a calculator. Everybody brought their book. Books look better today. That's hilarious. Read the book. And calculators are out there. A real one. Full 10 key. I like it. Fast. How much? How much?
87,130.
87,130. Excellent. Oh, did I say if you did really crummy on this quiz, forget about it and move on? If you crummy on the next quiz, forget about it and move on. I'm not kidding. If you crummy on a test, forget about it and move on. Move on. Throughout your careers, when you screw something up, what do you want to do? Work harder. That's it. Relax and work harder. Okay? Always, always, always. So if it's not where you want it to be, I was starting to say that. Some of you have a B plus and it's horrible for you, big deal. You're gonna drop one anyway. Everything else is probably perfect. Okay, so how do we get from these numbers to the accrual basis? What's accrual basis gonna look like? Maybe sales or service revenue, right? Some kind, this is a doctor, right? So probably some sort of service revenue. It is a doctor, isn't it? And credit what? Various expenses, right? This is going to be accruals and deferrals included, and then we'll get our net income. And, you know, in real life, of course, we'll have more categories of revenues and expenses than that. But that's what we're going to do. Okay, so let's go after it. What's the first thing we know? I gave you the beginning balance in receivables and the ending balance in receivables. And then I gave you the beginning balance in unearned service revenue and the ending balance in unearned service revenue. And then it gives you accrued expenses and prepaid expenses. I don't know about you, but I think sales and accounts receivable goes together. And I think sales and unearned revenue go together. And I think these accrued expenses, which is an accrued liability, right? I use the terminology. And prepaid expenses probably don't go with revenues. They probably go with what? Expenses. Let's put the stuff together that belongs together. And the one I gave you to take home, please do that or you'll go insane. There's a whole bunch of accounts. Group the ones that belong together and use them together. We know for revenues that there are cash revenues, right? So as we do revenues, so let's give this a shot. As we do revenues, so I'm going for revenues up here on my accrual basis statement, right? It's going to be service revenue. I know that some are for cash. It's debit cash and credit revenue. Does everybody in the room know that happens? Of course. I know some other ones are debit accounts receivable and credit sales revenue. What do you bet that's true? And then I know that sometimes we debit cash and credit accounts receivable. That happens too, right? And I also know that sometimes they pay me in advance and I debit cash and I credit what? What account goes with it? Revenues, cash, accounts receivable, and what else? Unearned revenue, right? So what I've got is on the unearned revenue, they might debit cash and credit unearned revenue. And then time goes by and I earn it. And what do, everybody? I debit unearned revenue, right? And I credit sales revenue or service revenue in this case. Yeah. The three ways I can get revenue is what? They can pay me at the same time. They can pay me later. That's going to be the accrual, the account receivable. Or they can pay me in advance, and that's the unearned revenue. This is so simple when you see it. Just let yourself see it. Get yourself organized. So what numbers do I have? I want to know this one. It starts at 0 when I start the year. What do you bet? Because I close revenues, right? Do I close the asset accounts and the liability accounts? No. Unearned revenues, what kind of account are they? Liability. Cash and accounts receivable are, of course, assets. Easy, right? Okay. Are you really bored? You're just kind of tired? Just hate me? Oh, okay. Kind of. Not really, just kind of. Okay, I got it. Okay. It's okay to come to class. I'm tired. I'm tired every day. Okay, anyway. So, if I weren't talking, I'd be falling asleep. She's not falling asleep. She just looks like she's gazing. Okay, anyway. So what do you want to do? What do we know? Do you know how much cash came in? Yeah, we just wrote it down. How much total cash came in? What's the total of the cash that came in?
142.6.
It could all be revenue, right? It could be. You could think of it that way. It could be debit, cash, and credit service revenue. It could all be revenue. Okay? But I know that I received cash. So one way you could do it is you could credit cash for 142.6. That happened. And right? Oh, I'm sorry, debit cash. Debit cash for 142.6. This is the way you could do it. And what am I looking for? Oh, I'm looking for service revenue, aren't I? Once I get this credit, I got it made. Right? Everybody agree? That's going to be the total of these. Very good. So what else do I know? What accounts receivable start at? 9250. And assets, debit. What is it going to end up at? 15,977. 927. I'm also deaf. Okay, there we go. So what happened really is they debited accounts receivable for a big number and credited service revenue. And then they debited cash and credited accounts receivable, but I don't really care about that. I just want the difference, the change. So what happened? How much did it increase by? 6,577. 6,677. Okay? 6,677. So how much did accounts receivable go up by? 6,677. So we could say, all right, the net effect of selling and then collecting is an increase of 6,677. Is it true I sold 6,677 more than I received? Receivables went up. Did I sell more than the cash I received?
Yes.
Yeah. So yes. If accounts receivable went up, you sold more than you received. Your sales have got to be more than your cash received. Okay? So what I could do is I could take the cash and add the accounts receivable. That's how the author does it. Use a journal entry. You can't screw up which one to add, which one to subtract. Or use T accounts if you want. I don't care. Okay? What's unearned revenue? What do we know at the beginning balances?
2840.
840. The ending balance?
4111.
4111. By the way, could accounts receivable go down instead of up? Could unearned revenue go down instead of up?
Yes.
Well, of course, right? You go either way. It's just a debit instead of a credit, or a credit instead of a debit, right? Okay. So unearned revenue looks like it went up, huh? So it's a credit to unearned revenue. How much is that?
$171.
1271. So what does that mean? Just think about it. I debited cash and credited unearned revenue for more than I debited unearned revenue and credited service revenue, right? I collected more than I earned, so I have less revenue than I have cash receipts. That's it. Okay? So on the receivables, I have more revenue than I collected. On the unearned revenue, I have less revenue than I collected in this particular situation, right? Okay, so what's service revenue? It's 142.6, right? Plus 6677 less 1271. How much is that? 148.6.
Yes. Okay.
No.
No, like $6. Just like
Oh, six.
48.6.
148.
148,006.
006. Thank you. 148006. What did I just discover? What service revenue is from an accrual basis. 148006. This is not hard, is it? Get your head around this stuff. Okay, what's going on? And by the way, do you understand deferrals and accruals if you can do this? Yeah. Pretty much there. Okay, it's the nice thing about messing with this. Okay, let's try the expense side. That's the revenue. Let's do the expenses. We want expenses. Okay. Could some of those expenses be debit expense and credit cash? How do you bet that could happen? How much cash was paid out?
55,470.
55,470. Okay? So, yeah, the cash that was paid out is 55,470. Okay? Is that all expense? I don't know. Expenses could be less, expenses could be more. Depends on what happens with the prepaids, right? If some of that cash was to buy prepaids, my expense will be less, right? If I used up some prepaids, my expense will be more. What else is there besides prepaids, though? Accrued expenses, which are liabilities, right? Accrued liabilities. Accrued expense and accrued liability mean the same thing. Just like accrued revenue and accounts receivable mean the same thing, okay? All right, good. So what could happen? I could have more expense, debit expense, I could have a debit to the expense and credit accrued liabilities, and I could have more of that than I have debit accrued liabilities and credit cash, right? Just like on the prepaids, or I could have less, right? Could go either way. Just like on the prepaids, some of this credit to cash is probably a debit to the prepaid. What do you bet? Okay? Some of that goes in there. And then when I use up the prepaids, it's debit expense and credit to prepaid, isn't it? So the three ways I can get expenses what? Cash expenses, accrued expenses, And deferred expenses, which are prepaids that I used up. Right, guys? That's it. What's inventory? Deferred expense. It's inventory until I sell it, it becomes cost of goods sold. What's building and equipment? Deferred expense. I buy it. Might pay for it or not if it's a little more complex, right? You could have payables against that. Right? I guess the same is true with inventory. No, it's a deferred expense until I do what? We're not selling it. If it's inventory, I sell it. What if it's equipment and building?
You use it.
Till I use it and I depreciate it. True? It's all the same stuff. Once you know how to do deferrals and accruals, you know how to do everything. Yeah.
By accrued expense, you just mean like notes payable, right?
Accounts payable.
Okay.
Yeah, it typically be on open account. Could be a note, but usually they don't make you sign a note, right? So, yeah. So debit salary expense and credit salaries payable. There you go. Right? Yeah. Debit rent expense, credit rent payable. Absolutely. That's an accrual of an expense. Okay? What's a deferral of an expense? Debit prepaid and credit cash. Right? What happens with that accrual of expense, that salary is payable? What are you going to do later? Pay it, and what would your entry be?
During expense plus.
Not expense when they pay it. I already expensed it. What do you want to debit when I pay it?
I was going to say expense, but that's.
No, you debit expense and credit payable when you accrued it.
You debit your payable.
Debit the payable and credit cash. Right, guys? Let's go back just a second. Okay, let's do an accrual of expense. Oh, let's do a cash expense. I use it up now. Debit what? Expense and credit cash. And we're done. Everybody agree? That's a cash expense. What do you do for an accrued expense? I used it up now, I debit expense, and I credit what?
Payable.
A payable of some kind. So I said debit salary expense, credit salaries payable. Or debit rent expense, credit rent payable. Or debit interest expense, credit interest payable. Getting the drift on this? Any expense accrued, right? That's an accrual. Okay, then what do you do when you pay it? What do you pay it with?
Debit your payable, credit cash.
Debit the payable and credit cash, right? Okay, that's paying off the payable. Right? Got it? Okay, what would be a deferral of expense? What does that look like?
Prepaid expense.
Okay, well, yeah, we debit prepaid expense, whatever it is. Prepaid insurance, prepaid rent, prepaid salaries, and credit cash. Right? Just exchange assets. Okay? And then what?
Debit your expense and credit the.
I use it up, I debit expense, rent expense, salary expense, whatever it is, and I credit
Your
the
prepaid.
prepaid. Ah, this is what I was just saying, you guys. Those are the three possibilities, right? A cash deal, a credit deal, which is doing something on account is a accrual, and paying for it in advance and deferring the expense is a deferral. That's it. We got them all. Everybody on the same page? Okay. Am I assuming you guys are studying this stuff? Getting it down before you show up, right? So great question. It's okay. You stop me whenever you want. Okay, you know, anytime. Okay. Let's do the same thing with revenues. Can there be a cash revenue? Sure. What would you do? Debit cash and you earned it, so you do what? Credit revenue. Right? Nothing to it. Could there be an accrual of revenue? I earned it, but I didn't get paid. That's what that means. We accrue the revenue, not the cash, right, guys? We defer the revenue, not the cash. Same with expenses. Okay, so what would I do?
Debit or receivable.
Debit accounts receivable or some sort of receivable, interest receivable, rent receivable, whatever it is, okay? Whatever you're earning. And credit what?
Revenue.
Revenue account, the revenue account. Debit the receivable, credit the revenue. That's the accrual, right? Okay, and then what? I bet they pay us, otherwise we didn't earn it. You guys know that, right? It's realized or realizable. Boy, your definitions on expense were just ugly. That last problem was ugly. And I went over it in class. I told you exactly what it was, and I pointed at the page. Jeez, the author went in depth. Okay, anyway, so get it down. So we'll have to do that one again. You better do revenue recognition too, don't you think? Yeah, okay, good. All right. What happens? We get the cash, debit cash, and credit what, everybody? The receivable. Okay? That's the accrual. Okay, what's the deferral look like? They pay me, but I haven't earned it yet. So debit cash and credit what? Unearned revenue, which is what kind of an account?
Liability.
Liability. Okay? All right? And then what? I earn it. Let's hope. I'm not going to give them the money back. What do I do?
Debit the unearned.
Debit the unearned revenue and credit what? Service revenue or whatever it is. Okay? Those are the only possibilities. Either they are going to pay me when I earn it, they're going to pay me in advance, or they're going to pay me later. The same is true on the expense side. That's everything there is. Okay? We got it. You're not the only one. That's good. Okay, pass. All right. Guarantee you're not the only one. Okay, gang, what do we know here now? This credit to cash could be all expense, but I doubt it. I bet there's other things going on. What happens in prepaids? Do we have a beginning balance? How much? 1917. I used to be able to look at the blackboard and write on it, and students would talk, and I'd know who was talking and what they said. Now I look right at you. I think I'm probably reading lips now. I don't know. I had my hearing tested numerous times because my wife thinks I don't hear. I think I just block her out. No, but yeah, she thinks my hearing's bad, but the doctors said, nah, it's fine. I'm just not paying attention. Maybe I'm not paying attention, you guys. What's the ending balance?
3232.
Okay. Why did I put it on the debit side? Because it's an asset. Yeah, I know that. Okay, what happened to it? I bought more than I used, huh? So some of that cash was to buy prepaids. Everybody agree? So, how much is that? 50?
1 5.
1 5. 15. 1315? Excellent. How about accrued liability? What did it start at?
3435.
By the way, when you're meeting firms and stuff, talk in your normal voice like you would with your friends unless you're a screamer, right? Don't be quiet. Don't be quiet. Accountants have this horrible reputation for being quiet. What if I stood up here and I talked like this the whole time? You really enjoy having a class with me? Actually, you have some professors that are like that. I can't do a monotone. It's just beyond me. But I've had them. Have you? Every word sounds like the last word, and you know the next one's going to sound the same. You write down every single thing they say or try to, if hard to hear, because otherwise you just go brain dead and you go brain dead anyway. Okay, don't do that to people you're interviewing with, okay? All right, be yourself. Have some fun. That's why they like to do these social events with you guys. See what you're like in a social setting. Gives them an idea what you're going to be like at work, because that's a social setting. Right? We have fun. What's the ending balance?
2108.
What does that mean it went down? I bet you anything that we paid off more than we incurred, right? Yeah, we did. Yeah. Because, you know, obviously this credit is bigger than that debit, that's all. So what we're going to do is we're going to reduce it by how much?
1327.
1327? Okay, all right. I better put it down here, I'm not running out of room. All right, so what do you want to credit? Obviously. It's going to be accrued liabilities, right? Accrued expenses. So what's the debit going to be? That's what the expense must be, right? How much is that? 55470 plus 1327 less 1315. I did it right, didn't I? No, I didn't. Anybody object to that? Those are two debits. Yeah. What was the number again? 132.
1327.
Debit. They were both debits. Anybody notice I do it wrong? I saw some people looking very alarmed. That's good. So its accrued expense goes over here then. How much was it?
1327.
There. So I've got this one, and this one done. Okay, what other debit do I need? All the expenses. How much is that? It's 55470 less 1315 less 1327. What do you get? 53 something, 52 something.
52,828.
52828. All right. So now what do we know? 952828? And what's the difference between 148,006 and 52828? She made even more than she thought. Anybody got it?
95,178.
Okay, now what I'd like you to do is do a reconciliation between this number and this number. Sometimes we'll ask for that. What's the difference between the 87,130 and the 95,178? Did you do a little schedule that shows that? Do it real quick. It's real simple. There's only 4 changes. In real life, of course, you might have numerous ones, right? You get a lot of different accruals and deferrals, that's all that is, on revenues and expenses. Get from one to the other, can you? Cash, 87,130. Accrual, it's 95,178. And if you really are confident and you really know what you're doing, you could have done this problem really, really fast. Just do it. What happened? What increased cash basis and what decreased cash basis? What items are there? What do you think? There's only revenues and expenses, that's all we got. And income statements, right? Gains and losses and so on. What do you think? What happened to accounts receivable? Up or down? Okay, increase in accounts receivable. It's kind of like doing a little cash flow statement, isn't it? How much did it go up by?
6677.
That means that my revenues are more, right? Because my receivables went up, added to the cash basis income, right? Going from cash to accrual. You'd subtract if you're going from accrual to cash, wouldn't you? And it'd keep track of where you're going here. That's why T accounts can't be journal. Okay, all right. What about unearned revenue, up or down? Okay, now an increase in unearned revenue means you collected more cash than you earned, so you're gonna have to subtract that one, aren't you? How much is that?
1,271.
Okay, let's do the expense side. What happened to prepays?
Went up.
How much?
1,315.
1315? Okay, if prepaids went up, that means the cash that went out was not an expense, right? It's the increased prepaid. So what happened to my expenses? They're less from an accrual basis standpoint, and if I have less expense, what happens to my income? I have more, so that's positive, isn't it? So notice, it's just like on a cash flow, right? The assets impact, right? Okay, versus the liability impact, okay? What else do we got?
Accrued liabilities.
Yeah, okay, so the accrued liabilities, what happened to those, up or down?
Went up.
They also went up.
No, they went down, actually.
They went down? Oh, geez, okay. They went down,
So you paid some off.
so you paid some off, so what does that mean?
Net income goes
Some of the cash that went out was not an expense, right?
up.
And the cash basis implies it was an expense, doesn't it? Includes an expense. So if I have less expenses, I have more
Income.
income. Is that the way it goes?
Net income.
Okay, the accrued liability went down, so how much is that?
156.
Yeah, and that's more income too, isn't it? That's true. If you take 87,130 plus 6677 less 1271 plus 1315 plus 1327, what do you get? 95,178. We're brilliant. Could you have done that directly? Sure. What's the risk? You'll subtract something you should add. What if you use a journal entry or a T account service? What it like that? You won't screw up. Okay. How long does it take to use the T account? So you have to figure it out anyway. No. So see yourself, however you want to approach it. However your brain works, huh? Whatever is more logical to you. Okay, good. That one's boring. How about the next one? Exercise 319. Geez, you did ever do anything. How would you approach this one? This one's kind of fun. It's the same idea, but it just looks so different. They want to convert their cash basis to accrual basis. on this one too. Huh. So what have they recorded for sales? What do you think? In 2013, what have they recorded for sales? You do this one really quickly. It's amazing how fast you can do it. What have they recorded for sales in 2013? Only the cash that was received. How much is that? $295. What should they have recorded? The cash they received this year and the cash the sales they earned this year and received in 2014 and 2015. What would you do with this problem that looks so hard? How about 295 plus 160 plus 30? I'm not kidding. It took them 3 years to collect it all. That's all it is. Right? How about 2014? How much did they recognize as sales? 160 plus, so careful. In 2014, they received 160 from 2013 sales,
355.
plus the 355. So it'd be 160 plus 355 would be their cash basis, wouldn't it? What's accrual basis going to be? The 355 plus what?
90.
The 90, yeah, and then presumably there'd really be more the next year. You just didn't want to make the problem wrong. Okay, but probably there'd be more the next year. It probably took us 3 years again to collect them. Wouldn't it? Oh, geez. What about 2015? What would they show on a cash basis statement? Do you want to do that? 30, not just the 408,
48 plus 90 plus 30.
plus the 90 plus the 30, because, right, whatever cash you received is your sales, right? For cash basis. What about for accrual basis? Just the 408, plus really there'd probably be some the next 2 years too. Got it? Could you convert in real life with this? Yeah, nothing to it, right? Okay? Let's try the expense side. What would they show for cash basis for expenses in 2013?
185 plus 40.
185 plus 40, right? Even though the 40 says it's a prepayment of 2014 expenses. So what should they have shown in 2013? Just the 185. The 40 should go to 2014, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
Everybody agree with that? Okay. So what would you show in 2013 though for your expenses on accrual basis?
You do your prepaid.
You wouldn't do the prepaid because that's a prepaid for 14. So what would you show in 2013? The 185 plus the 67 that was accrued, right? Plus another 25 that it took them 2 years to pay, right? Got it? Wait, go on term on the payables too. And receivables. Okay. What would you do then for cash basis for 2014? Well, 67 plus 160 plus 45, right? What would you do for accrual basis? The 40 now, because that was a prepaid, okay, plus 160 plus 55. This is too easy, okay? And you just continue. What would you do for 2015? Add the 25 to 55 to 218, right, guys? And what would you do for expenses? The 45 prepaid, right? Plus the 218. Now, when you look at that problem, and some of you looked at it already, I hope. Did it look hard? Is it? No. It's relax, read, figure out what they're talking about. Okay? Jeez, I didn't even do the reverse. So, go this. I'd be happy to work. We have 3 days in this chapter, right? Third one, terrible. And we have a 2-hour review session on it too. Mostly for people with principles or kind of a little crazy, perhaps. Everybody's welcome, obviously. I'll work these problems for you. Okay? Any questions?
I wouldn't be able to get like 4:30. Would you stay a little past that?
Oh, probably.
Yeah, it is.
I'll always do.
We were talking about the session on Monday, right?
Yeah. Come here.
You
And it'll stick around. I can't record it again. I have to stick around. For any questions, very specific.
I've got my days.
So you well. Knock it off. Yeah.
My notes are,
All right, man. Remind me, we're gonna work that one again out.
Oh, it is?